The air hung thick and heavy over Lake Cypress, a forgotten corner of rural Florida, often bypassed by tourists chasing theme park thrills. For the locals, it was a place of quiet fishing, old family stories, and an unspoken understanding about the creatures that truly ruled its murky waters. For the group of college students, eager marine biology interns on a summer research project, it was simply a rich ecosystem. Liam, the ambitious leader, was focused on data. Maria, meticulous and observant, handled the equipment. And Ben, usually jovial, felt an increasing unease about the deep, still lake. Their primary task was to track the movements of a particularly large, elusive American alligator, rumored to be of immense size and age. Locals had nicknamed it Old McGrin for the chilling, almost human-like smile its jaw seemed to form when it sunned itself. Stories about it were whispered, not told. Tales of impossible cunning and a territoriality that bordered on malevolence. They were deep in the lake's heart, surrounded by cypress trees draped in Spanish moss, their airboat's engine cut for a silent data collection period. The silence was profound, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant throbbing hum of unseen insects. The water, dark as coffee, reflected the setting sun in a shattered mosaic of orange and purple. "Got a ping," Maria announced, staring at her sonar screen. Massive echo, much bigger than anything on record, moving slowly, right under us. A thrill shot through Liam. This was it. Proof of Old Man Grin. He leaned over the side of the boat, peering into the murky depths. The sweet, damp smell of the lake, usually pleasant, now seemed to carry an underlying, musky odor, thick and primal. Then the boat gave a subtle, sickening lurch. Not a bump, but a slow, deliberate lift, as if something immense was rising directly beneath them. The water around the boat began to swirl, black and silent, without a breeze. "What was that?" Ben whispered, his face pale. Suddenly, a single, massive eye broke the surface of the water, no more than 3 feet from Liam's face. It was impossibly large, ancient, its iris a swirling vortex of deep olive green, its pupil a narrow black slit that seemed to hold an impossible intelligence. It wasn't the dull, reptilian gaze of a normal alligator. This eye held a chilling awareness, a deep, patient cunning. Around it, the water shimmered with a faint, almost imperceptible phosphorescent glow. Liam froze, his breath catching in his throat. The eye belonged to Old Man Grin. It was larger than the lid of a trash can, its surface rippled with ancient scars. As the eye watched them, unblinking, a faint, low hiss escaped from just beneath the water, a sound that seemed to snake through the air, whispering directly into their minds. You watch, you track, but this is my domain. The sound wasn't just a physical hiss. It was a psychic intrusion, a cold, ancient voice. Then, slowly, majestically, a section of the water behind the eye began to rise, revealing a massive, ancient head, wider than the airboat itself, covered in barnacle-encrusted scutes and moss. Its jaw, immense and powerful, was partially opened, revealing rows of yellowed, dagger-like teeth, and between them a strange, almost human-like grin that was profoundly unsettling. The glow from the water intensified, briefly illuminating. Grotesque, human-like carvings and symbols etched into the creature's ancient scales, swirling with the phosphorescent light. "That's not possible," Liam breathed, finally breaking his paralysis. The gargantuan crocodile's gaze shifted, its immense eye fixing on Ben, then Maria, then back to Liam. The psychic whisper intensified, a chilling current of ancient thought. "The lake provides, the hunt continues, and you are the newest offerings." Suddenly the monstrous head dipped. The phosphorescent glow pulsed violently. The boat lurched again, violently this time, and Liam felt a sharp, unimaginable pain tear through his leg as the immense jaws clamped down. The last thing he heard was the terrifying crunch of metal and bone, and the faint, satisfied gurgle of Old Man Grin as he was dragged into the black, unblinking depths of Lake Cypress. The remaining two students were left alone, stranded on the damaged airboat on a lake that had just revealed its true, horrifying master. Maria screamed, a raw, piercing sound that tore through the sudden silence. Ben, pale and trembling, stumbled back from the spot where Liam had vanished, his eyes wide with shock and horror. The water, which had churned violently, settled back into its dark, still surface as if nothing had happened. Only the lingering scent of that primal musk and the faint phosphorescent glow on the water's surface hinted at the monstrous appetite of Old Man Grin. The airboat, now listing heavily to one side, had a gaping hole torn through its hull, just where Liam had been. Sitting, water slowly, inexorably began to seep in. "He's gone," Maria whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We have to get out of here," Ben muttered, his voice hoarse. He fumbled with the emergency flares, his hands shaking. The engine remained stubbornly silent, a dead weight in the boat. The last sliver of twilight vanished, plunging the lake into absolute darkness. The stars above were numerous, but offered little comfort against the profound, living blackness of the swamp. The distant throbbing hum of unseen insects seemed to intensify, becoming a low, resonant drone that vibrated through the boat itself. Then, from somewhere very close, a new sound began, a soft, rhythmic sloshing, like something heavy being dragged slowly through shallow water. It circled the airboat just out of sight in the inky blackness. "Is it him?" Maria whispered, clutching Ben's arm. Suddenly, a series of faint, almost imperceptible taps began on the hull of the airboat, directly beneath their feet. Tap, 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 tap. It wasn't the water. It was deliberate, rhythmic, and with each tap, the faint phosphorescent glow on the water around them intensified, illuminating patches of slimy, dark algae clinging to the boat's underside. The musky odor grew stronger, overwhelming, mixed with a chilling new scent. Something cold and metallic, like wet stone and deep earth. Then a low, guttural gurgle rose from directly beneath the airboat, followed by a faint, breathy sigh that seemed to whisper directly into their minds. "We are hungry. Join the deep." Maria gasped, pressing herself against Ben. They peered into the darkness, but saw nothing. The terrifying realization dawned on them. Old Mangrin hadn't just eaten Liam. It was still there, and it wasn't just a giant alligator. From the dark water beneath the boat, a single massive eye slowly broke the surface again, shimmering with the same intelligent, malevolent green and red glow. It was closer than before, almost touching the hull, and as it rose, they saw more. Not just an eye, but an entire section of the lake bed seemed to be rising with it. A massive ancient structure covered in barnacles and glowing algae. Its surface rippled with the immense scales of the beast, and clinging to this rising structure, barely visible in the faint glow, were ghostly, translucent forms. Human forms. Hundreds of them. Their faces were indistinct, their bodies distorted by the water, but they were unmistakably the lost, the drowned, forever trapped within the creature's immense living form. They seemed to be part of the very algae, part of the lake itself. The whispers in their minds intensified, a chorus of voices, ancient and mournful, yet filled with a chilling, boundless hunger. The lake remembers every soul, every breath, and we desire yours. Ben tried to start the engine again, frantically turning the key, but the motor remained dead. The airboat slowly sank deeper into the water rising around their ankles. They were trapped on a crumbling vessel, surrounded by a living, breathing lake and its ancient, consuming master. I've continued the story in part 2, escalating the horror by revealing the extent of Old Man Grin's nature as a sentient, consuming entity, and the ghostly forms absorbed within it. The airboat is sinking, increasing their peril. The monstrous ancient structure, shimmering with barnacles and glowing algae, continued to rise from the depths, pushing the sinking airboat before it. Maria and Ben scrambled to the highest point of the boat, but the water was already at their knees, cold and dark. The immense eye of Old Man Grin, vast and intelligent, was now directly level with them, reflecting their terror. The whispers in their minds intensified, a cacophony of ancient voices, mournful and yearning, yet with an undeniable chilling hunger. Join us, the current flows, eternal rest. The sweet, musky odor was overpowering, making them light-headed. "We have to jump," Ben yelled, his voice hoarse with desperation. "Swim for the trees!" But as he spoke, from the dark, swirling water around the immense creature, countless other tentacles emerged. Thinner than the ones that had pulled the boat, but agile and swift, they writhed with a sinister life, their surfaces covered in the same glowing algae. They reached for Maria and Ben like grotesque living ropes. One of the tentacles lashed out, wrapping around Ben's wrist. He cried out, struggling against its slimy grip. The glowing algae on the tentacle pulsed, and Ben's eyes widened, a look of profound, serene acceptance washing over his face. He stopped struggling. "Ben, no!" Maria shrieked, pulling at him. "It's peaceful," Ben whispered, his voice oddly calm, his eyes distant. "So many memories, so many lives. They welcome us." He extended his free hand, not to fight, but to touch the pulsating surface of the colossal creature. As his fingers made contact, a network of glowing filaments instantly spread from his fingertips, disappearing into the monster's scales. His body went limp, and he slid effortlessly into the dark water, dissolving into the shimmering depths, just as Liam had. Maria was alone. The airboat gave a final desperate groan, its last visible piece sinking beneath the water. She was standing on the undulating, slimy surface of Old Man Grin, which was now fully exposed. A massive living island of scales, barnacles, and glowing algae. The psychic whispers surrounded her, no longer in her mind, but seemingly emanating from every part of the colossal beast. She belongs, the last, the fresh. The sweet, musky odor filled her lungs, and she felt a strange, undeniable pull. A yearning for rest. The glowing red eyes embedded in the creature's surface flickered, and she saw vague, fleeting images swirl within them. Faces of people, animals, even ancient, long-forgotten swamp creatures, all absorbed into the immense consciousness of the beast. Then the massive head of Old Man Grin slowly lowered, its immense, intelligent eye now only inches from Maria's face. The human-like grin seemed to widen, revealing deeper, darker recesses between its dagger-like teeth. From those shadows, A faint rhythmic tinkling sound began, like tiny bells or distant chimes, strangely beautiful and utterly horrifying. And from its gaping jaw, not a gurgle, but a soft, melodic voice emerged, 1,000 voices blending into one. The same voice that had whispered in her mind earlier, but now full and resonant. "Welcome, Maria. You are home. The lake is infinite, and now so are you." Maria felt a profound sense of peace wash over her, a deep, inescapable calm. Her struggles ceased, her fear vanished. The glowing filaments began to emerge from her own skin, seeking connection. She looked into the vast, ancient eye of Old Man Grin and saw not a monster, but a profound, ancient sadness, a being that simply yearned for connection, for inclusion, for the constant collection of life. Maria felt the filaments on her skin, eager to merge. The overwhelming sense of peace was alluring, a promise of an end to fear. The vast, ancient eye of Old Man Grin, inches from her face, seemed to pulse with a knowing warmth. The melodic voice, countless souls intertwined, flowed through her, promising infinity. But then a flicker, a tiny, almost imperceptible glitch in the chorus of voices, a discordant note of fear, a whisper of a warning that felt alien to the overwhelming calm. It was a single, desperate thought, distinct from the others, like a tiny stone disrupting a perfectly still pond. Not yet. Too soon. You can fight. The peace fractured, replaced by a sudden jarring confusion. The sweet, musky odor became acrid, burning her nostrils. The glowing red eyes embedded in the creature's surface shimmered, their images of absorbed lives twisting into grotesque, writhing figures, silent screams trapped in amber. Maria gasped, not from fear, but from the sudden clarity. This was not peace, this was consumption. The immense creature was not offering solace. It was offering oblivion, cloaked in a deceptive harmony. The anomalous thought, the tiny glitch, hadn't come from the creature's collective. It had come from something within it, something that resisted. With a desperate surge of her own will, Maria pushed back against the encroaching peace, against the filaments coiling around her. She focused on the discordant whisper, the single note of defiance. She clawed at the slimy, pulsating surface of Old Man Grin, no longer trying to embrace it, but to find purchase, to somehow break free. The immense creature recoiled, not in pain but in surprise. The profound, ancient sadness in its eye intensified, tinged with a flicker of something akin to confusion, then a vast, slow anger. The water around them churned, not violently, but with a deep, unsettling roil, as if the lake itself was disturbed. The rhythmic tinkling from its jaw ceased. The melodic voice faltered, replaced by a low, guttural rumble that vibrated through the very bedrock of the lake. It was the sound of disappointment, of a meal interrupted. Suddenly, with an impossible speed, a large, dark shadow detached itself from the underside of Old Man Grin. It was a mass of barnacles and glowing algae, twisting and reforming. It lunged at Maria, not with jaws, but with a surprising force that sent her flying through the air, away from the monster, towards the distant, dark line of cypress trees. She landed hard in shallow water, splashing against a bank of muddy earth. Dazed, gasping for breath, she crawled onto dry land, her body aching, her mind reeling. She looked back at the lake. Old Man Grin was sinking slowly, majestically back into the depths, its glowing red eyes fading into the black water. The profound silence of the swamp returned, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Maria stumbled through the undergrowth, her senses on high alert. Hours later, exhausted and delirious, she stumbled onto a paved road and was found by a passing motorist. Her story of a monstrous alligator and talking water was understandably met with skepticism, then concern for her mental state. She never spoke of Lake Cypress again. She moved away from Florida, far from any large bodies of water she tried to forget. But sometimes on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the air was still, she would feel a faint, rhythmic pulsing beneath her skin, particularly in her chest, where her heart beat. It wasn't pain. It was a deep, resonant thrum, a low, steady hum that seemed to echo the very pulse of the earth. And sometimes, in the deepest silence, she would hear it. A faint, almost imperceptible tinkling sound, like tiny bells or distant chimes, strangely beautiful yet filled with a profound, unnameable sadness. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a melodic thread woven into the fabric of reality itself. Maria never understood what truly happened in Lake Cypress. Was she truly free? Or had a part of Old Man Grin, a fragment of its vast, ancient consciousness, merely detached itself, choosing to let her go for some unknown purpose, a single, independent spore sent out into the world? Dusuri was the tinkling sound, a sign of its continued influence, a call she was now forever bound to hear. The lake, she knew, remembered every soul, and perhaps now a part of its silent, ancient collection walked free, forever listening to the unseen depths, forever connected to Florida's mysterious, insatiable hunter.